All right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, I'm not going to say I told you so because you didn't even need to be a sidekick to predict that this would happen, but as soon as Colby Covington was announced to be the next title contender, we soon thereafter started to see media members seethe, as I said that they would. The thing that did surprise me, however, was the amount of fighters that were seething due to this, and one of those in particular, Belal Muhammad, who apparently is on a mission to, I don't know, martyr himself or what. I'm not quite sure. He is burning his boats, so to speak, and immediately regretted doing so after, but the only thing he had to try to put out the fire was his own urine, and it wasn't enough. The damage has already been done. So I hate to tell you, my guy, but I don't think there's any turning back from what you said. Of course, now we're talking about the reaction to Colby Covington, as I said in the opening there, but I have to preface this. I don't agree with him receiving the title shot either. I don't think that he's deserving of it. However, I don't think that Belal Muhammad is necessarily deserving of a title shot either. Now, one of the things that I keep hearing, and I wish that this would stop, is that they could understand Jorge Masvidal getting the title shot just because of the storyline. Since when does a storyline make you deserving of a title shot? If the issue that you have here is that Colby Covington doesn't deserve a title shot because he's waited out for too long, but Jorge Masvidal deserves it because of a storyline, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like, whatsoever. So, if you're cool with Jorge Masvidal getting it, then why wouldn't you be cool with Colby Covington getting it? The last win that Colby Covington has is a mollywhopping of Jorge Masvidal, so I feel like that needs to stop. But anyways, also, if you're liking this video or the content in general, please like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you are, new here, subscribe. It would be awesome. It's easy. You'll probably forget about it in a few hours anyways. It's free. So, yeah, anyways. Now, I want to get to the actual boat burning part because the Jorge Masvidal comments were not that. Or what I perceive to be the boat burning anyways. Belal Muhammad is pulling out the old victim card, okay? And he's claiming racism. Now, he deleted the tweet, which is the urine analogy, but screenshots exist, and they happen immediately. There is no running from the statements that you made, okay? Aaron Bronstetter, who is a Canadian MMA journalist who I don't particularly care for, quoted something that Leon Edwards said after hearing that Colby Covington was going to be getting the next title shot, and in response to that tweet, Belal Muhammad replied simply with, quote, "He's white," end quote. Okay, now, later in that day, Belal Muhammad then went on the Anakin Florian podcast to get some, Jeff Molina services and from the main talent over there, where he continued to make borderline racist remarks, saying that the only people that care about watching Colby Covington are drunken hillbillys, which is funny because Colby Covington isn't popular because of his diehard fan base filled with drunken hillbillies. It's because people want to watch him lose. Okay, and to call another man's fans drunken hillbillies is quite funny when there are probably people out there that would call your massive fan base, or so he says that he has a massive fan base. I have yet to see that massive fan base, but one might call them, something along the lines of, I don't know, inbred goat fuckers or something like that. I wouldn't call them that, but I'm sure some people might. But it is also funny that that Colby Covington gets accused of having this racist drunken hillbilly fan base or whatever, when most of the reason why people don't like Colby Covington is because of his politics. And Jorge Masvidal, who apparently, according to Belal Muhammad, is more deserving of Colby Covington based on a storyline, has been more politically active in the particular politician in question's campaigns and everything else, quite frankly, than Colby Covington himself has been. Jorge Masvidal will walk around with a fucking MAGA hat on, so what? You know what I mean? There's a common denominator here, but anyways. He then attempted to make a case for why he is deserving of the title shot, and I want to say this. There is a massive difference between being more deserving than another person than actually being deserving of the thing, and I think that this is a perfect example of this. He went on to bash Leon Edwards' notable wins and left out the fact that he had head kick KO'd Kamaru Usman because he said that oh, they put up his notable wins on the screen on Saturday night, and they included RDA, Cowboy Cerrone, and Nate Diaz. How are you a champion with wins like those? Okay, Belal, again, like you just, conveniently left out the fact that he head kicked Kamaru Usman into the shadow realm, and, he was using what they had put up on the screen, but it's pretty obvious that Leon Edwards is championship material. He's been the only person in the last how many years, I can't recall off the top of my head, to beat Kamaru Usman, not just in a last-ditch effort, beautifully set up head kick when he had lost the 3 previous rounds, but now in a pretty dominant fashion, in my opinion. Beat him in almost every aspect of MMA on Saturday night over the course of 5 rounds, which is almost more impressive than that head kick KO, if we're being honest. He's on like an 11 or 12 fight win streak, and he isn't boring as fuck, okay? And also, Belal Muhammad's notable wins are not much better, which I thought was quite funny because he went on to give his notable wins in this podcast. So these are the wins that he views as his best wins, which were with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Damian Maia. At one point in time, I feel like these wins would have been phenomenal wins in the welterweight division and possibly made you deserving of a title shot. But with that being said, when he beat Damian Maia, he was something like 43 years old, okay, and had just gotten TKO'd from Gilbert Burns, which is also another point and reason as to why you may not be getting the shots that you think that you deserve, my guy, because Gilbert Burns went out there and fucked Damian Maia up. You went out there and just, did enough. And that's just the way she goes. So, and, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, a good win, absolutely. Still at about 38 or 39 years old, complete, full head of gray hair. And we also know as MMA fans that anybody who's basically, adept at a single leg takedown or something could beat Wonderboy Thompson at this point in his career. He literally has said that he does not want to fight wrestlers anymore. He is simply going for fun, action-packed striking fights because he knows damn well that if he fights somebody who grapples, he will lose. And also, Belal Muhammad was not able to get much done in that fight. He did win a victory, decision victory, obviously, and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson didn't have much for him, but Belal Muhammad didn't do much with that, man. Gilbert Burns beat him more impressively and kind of laid the foundation for how you would beat Wonderboy Thompson. And Belal Muhammad did it worse. Okay, so again, if you want to, if you're a Belal fan, you can say that he's more deserving than Colby Covington, but I would certainly, I wouldn't say he's deserving. I would say, actually, I would agree with you if you would say that he is more deserving than Colby Covington, but that's kind of the problem at this point at 170 pounds. We had such a dominant champion, and there is no clear-cut contender, and the clear-cut contender just got tied up in a rematch or a trilogy bout with the champion. Now that that's over, and Kamaru Usman has lost the trilogy, you can't give him another title shot, and there's no real clear-cut contender. I would argue that this decision by Dana White, whether you want to, entertain the idea of Colby Covington dropping charges or something like that towards Jorge Masvidal, which I don't know how things work in the States or in any one particular state, but here in my country, which I know my country is shit, but that being said, if you are the quote-unquote victim of a crime and the police feel that they have enough evidence to go ahead with prosecution, they don't need your consent. You can say that you want to drop charges. I know this because I was jumped by 4 adults outside my high school when I was 14 years old, and I did not want to press charges because I was a raging psychotic teenager who simply wanted to get revenge. The police did not they did not grant my wishes. They said, well, too bad, because we have enough evidence to prosecute, and if you don't want to come to court, again, too bad, because we'll just subpoena you. Okay, so again, I don't know how things work in the States, but that's typically like my understanding of things, especially here in Canada. Now, maybe Colby does have the power to drop the charges, who knows? But besides that, if we're looking at it from a business aspect, I would argue that this is Dana White not necessarily feeding Colby Covington to Leon Edwards, because I feel like this is a tough fight for anybody in the welterweight division, which is why I'm not overly upset at the decision. But this is a potential star maker, because if Leon Edwards goes out there and handedly beats Colby Covington, one, he will become, much more famous overnight than he already is, and not just in the UK, but in, to American fans as well. And now let's just say, hypothetically, Colby Covington gets the job done and becomes the welterweight champion of the world. Whoever is to beat him and take the title off of him will instantly become 10 times more famous. So I think that that's truly all it is. The UFC does not care about race, religion, ethnicity, or any of that shit. If we're being honest with ourselves, MMA and the UFC in general is probably one of the most diverse sports in the entire world. And the only fucking color that they see or give two fucks about is green, okay? Now, I say green because in the United States of America, their money is green. Here, our money looks like Monopoly money, but, they're in the States. So they only care about fucking green, okay? And I feel like that whenever guys make these claims of racism or bias or anything like that, or Dana White privilege or whatever, it's simply cope. They don't want to look at themselves in the mirror and realize that they're boring as shit to watch fight, and they don't really have the best personality, so they don't have a whole lot of fans. That's a hard pill to swallow, I would imagine, for some. I also want to know why no one complains whenever Conor gets seemingly undeserving title shots. Like, it's basically what they're saying about Jorge Masvidal. Oh, well, the storyline's there. Oh, well, he's so famous, he's going to sell pay-per-views. We know Conor gets what he wants. Why is it okay for somebody who's ultra famous that sells well over 1 million pay-per-views every time out, but it's not okay for a guy in Colby Covington to get an undeserved title shot when Dana White is probably just trying to make the welterweight division great again? Okay, so... and as a matter of fact, the media goes the exact opposite way when it comes to Conor McGregor. They, have fucking full-on wet dreams about it, and they're asking questions about it at every press conference, media scrum, everything after that, even though Conor McGregor hasn't even entered the fucking testing pool yet, okay? So it's going to be at least 6 months to a year before we see him compete. But media doesn't give a shit, fighters don't give a shit. It only seems to be when it's Colby Covington, if we're being honest with ourselves. What it boils down to, in my opinion, is that nobody wants to fucking watch him fight, or nobody cares to watch him fight. Honestly, I feel like if Belal Muhammad never fought again, I wouldn't mind. I would like to see what he could do against a guy like Shavkat. I would like to see what he could do against a guy like Colby Covington. I would like to see him continue fighting. But if he didn't, I wouldn't be heartbroken over it, okay? But this is what I'm going to point out to Belal Muhammad, okay? And yes, I understand that Colby Covington's record does not much look better, or look much better, pardon me. I just went full dyslexia there in the finishing department. But he did get a finish last time out, Belal Muhammad, so good for him, okay? Against a guy who was ranked number 10, by the way, and possibly may not have been ready for the top of the welterweight division in Sean Brady. But that was your one finish for the last 3 years. And the reason I say it like that is because if you go and take a look at Belal Muhammad's record on Wikipedia, he averages about one finish every 3 years. And also, almost identical, actually, about every 8 fights, okay? Which is why you are not getting the title shot, Belal Muhammad. You have no highlight reel, my guy. Imagine them trying to create a promotion trailer for him fighting for the title. They would have to use, we talked about this the other day, they would have to use the same 3 highlights. I think a TKO, his standing TKO of Sean Brady, which these aren't great highlights, and I think he's got one submission thrown in there in the last 6 years in the UFC. They would have to use those same fucking highlights from 6 different angles to try and create any kind of promotional trailer for, you fighting for the title. And it's not doing great, okay? And again, if you don't believe me, look up Wikipedia, take a look at his record. The guy is averaging about one finish for 8 fights. And it's not like the decisions that he has are very fun. Okay, Colby Covington has been involved in some very exciting wars in the last few years, so that's one thing. But also, if you're going to have a boring fight style, you better fucking do something else to create attention to yourself, which is exactly what Colby Covington did, which is exactly why that he's in the position that he's in now. Okay, we know this. We all know the story. It's honestly oversaid. I'm not even going to go over it. But he changed his persona in order to make people fucking hate him. so that he could be exciting. And I would argue that his fight style is more exciting than Belal Muhammad anyways. And for those of you that are about to say, well, Belal Muhammad's a respectful Muslim. He doesn't want to trash talk. He doesn't want to do things like the blah, 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 all this shit. Bull fucking shit. That guy is nonstop talking shit on Twitter. Okay? He's got like 3 funny moments for every fucking 20 that he posts. And he is just simply bad at talking shit in person, which he does do constantly. Like we just went over him. He contradicts himself. He tries to shit talk Leon Edwards' notable wins while not realizing that his look almost just as bad or even as bad. But the guy trash talks nonstop. So it's not that he's just too respectful or anything like that. John Anik kind of tried to say that during their interview yesterday, and I was like, fuck are you talking about, dude? The whole reason you're talking to him right now is because of the shit that he posted on Twitter. They even said that. The guy posts on Twitter like fucking crazy. It's insane, dude. Like, either get better at trash talking or have more exciting fights or do something that's going to make people actually invested in watching you fight or win or lose or whatever, dude. You know, and people will bring up guys like George St. Pierre. They'll say, oh, like Keon Kimura did this, that George St. Pierre got all the love in the world even though he had a bunch of boring fights and shit like that. George St. Pierre, yes, was very respectful, didn't trash talk. The press conference moments were very boring and things like that. And also, he did have a pretty long stint there in the UFC where he had boring fights. However, leading up to that, he had 8 finishes, right? And then all of his boring fights that came thereafter were fucking title defenses, which happens with almost every champion. Israel Adesanya, incredibly entertaining on the come up, boring as fuck as a champion. Okay, this happens all the fucking time, and it is what it is, dude. Also, George St. Pierre had a whole country behind him, so it is what it is there. But when you're a guy like Belal Muhammad, born and raised in Chicago, and then you're fucking basically a white American is racist because he's a white American is basically what the fuck you're doing, and it's cringe as shit, dude. Enough of that, okay? He also seems to be refusing to fight Shavkat because he said on the John Anik and Kenny Florian's podcast there that he, you know, the only thing he doesn't have on his resume is a former champion, so he's going to try and get the fight with Kamaru Usman. Well, like, dude, now you're just making it even worse for yourself because Kamaru Usman just got through a hard-fought 5 rounds, right? Belal Muhammad tried to say he doesn't have injuries or take any damage. He has no fucking clue, so I don't know why he would be making those claims. Kamaru Usman is an old man with shit knees, a broken hand, and fucking what looked like staph infection behind his right ear during the fight. So I would imagine he's going to take probably like 3 months off or something along those lines before he even thinks about entering a training camp. And then you got training camp, so what, you're willing to wait now until October or around there to fight, which will be exactly what you were criticizing Colby Covington for, right? Sat out for over a year. You will at that point have been sat out for about a year, not over, but about a year. And then you're gonna clamor for a title shot, and it's fucking mental. Now, if he does go out there and beat Kamaru Usman, which I honestly don't fucking think he'll do, if he does though, I would say that he's deserving at that point. But at this point, he is not. And he's racist also. Borderline. Like, honestly, dude. He's borderline racist. Because for him to claim that Colby Covington is getting a title shot because he's fucking white is absolutely mental, dude. Some of the guys in the UFC that get the absolute most special treatment are not fucking white Americans, dude. Israel Adesanya has been paid and pushed more than every single champion in the UFC since his, rise to quote-unquote superstardom, even though his pay-per-views do absolutely fucking garbage numbers, and he's had like multiple boring fights in a row, and the only reason his last fight was even remotely exciting is because Alex Pereira was like, I'm going at this dude because I know I can fucking knock him out. He kind of forced Izzy to fight. He gets pushed unbelievably. Like, they push him like crazy. John Jones has gotten more chances than anybody. They've changed rules for him. You know what I mean? And, we've been all over all of this, but whatever. But it's hilarious that and dude, that a guy like Belal Muhammad can claim racism when, and he did this at another point in time, for those of you that don't remember, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, during their fight, which was at the Apex, which is important context, and you'll understand why in a minute. Belal Muhammad claims that there were drunken idiot fans screaming at, what did he say, screaming racist Arabic words at Belal Muhammad during their fight, and then asked Wonderboy during the fight if those were your boys. Wonderboy said no, and then he just went back to fighting Wonderboy Thompson. The Apex, especially at that time, that was quite a while ago, was usually typically pretty fucking empty, okay? Also, it can only hold about 200 people, and I would imagine that a large chunk of those people are people that, like, somebody like Dana or a fighter or somebody along those lines would give tickets to, right? Like, they're not regular, normal fucking drunk fans that you would see at, like, an arena show, right? They're typically, like, friends of fighters, family of fighters, friends of Dana's, or influencers or whatever, shit like that, right? And this is coming from a motherfucker whose fan base, alleged fan base, because I still don't see them, but we're talking about the Muslim fan base, for those of you that are, too slow to pick up on that, will literally send death threats to the opponents of Muslim fighters and be absolutely 100% racist. Do you have any idea how many comments YouTube has held for review? I don't even know how to turn that setting off. But on my older videos when I was shitting on, I was making fun of the Dagestani guys, you know how many fucking, like, horrible, nasty messages I've gotten that are, borderline threats, that YouTube just, like, filtered out, I guess, and I went, oh, what the fuck? I didn't even know that that was a feature, but to claim that white, like, drunk hillbillies are, like, the worst, fuck, dude, shut up. Shut up. At least drunken hillbillies aren't sending fucking death threats to people, right? Sean Brady spoke out about this, and I don't see any reason for Sean Brady to lie. I do see a reason for Belal Muhammad to lie, though, because his whole persona seems to be this victim card. And I gotta say this, too. This is gonna make people want to see you fight less. You're supposed to be a professional fighter. You are a professional fighter. I'm not gonna say you're supposed to be. You're a professional fighter. You are supposed to be one of, like, the top dog fucking alpha males, whatever you want to call it. And when every time you don't get your way, you're just fucking whining and claiming racism, it is not a good look. And people don't want to see victims fucking fight, dude. Like, seriously. That's why even Colby Covington's fan base has shrunk since the whole lawsuit shit. And people keep acting like he wasn't sitting out for a reason. People keep saying he's uninjured, sitting out. Okay, first of all, do any of you know how fucking lawsuits work, you retards? Okay? Because I would imagine his lawyer told him, you better not fucking fight for about a year. Because in that time, you could say that you would have fought in 2 times, made this much money per fight, and we can claim this much money in damages towards Jorge Masvidal. This is literally like shit lawyers will tell you. They will tell you, don't be seen doing this, don't be seen doing that. Because, people who are very wealthy, like Jorge Masvidal, or insurance companies, can hire private investigators to follow you around. This has happened to me. This has happened to my mom. ICBC will do this shit here in British Columbia. They will hire a private investigator to see if you are making up your injury claims. Colby Covington didn't sit out for no reason. He sat out because there's a fucking lawsuit ongoing. And if he were to hop back in the cage immediately after, it wouldn't look great. And the lawsuit probably wouldn't go his way. And if he is using it to leverage his title shot, he wouldn't have been able to do so. So, Belal Muhammad's racist. He's a whiny bitch who's playing the victim card. I hate to do this, man. I'm sure there is a few Belal Muhammad fans in my, viewer base or whatever the fuck in my fan base, whatever you want to call it, my subscribers, but Belal Muhammad basically burned all his boats and then refuses to fight Shavkat in his interview with John Anik and Kenny Florian. And he didn't outright say he's refusing, but he's refusing, which I would argue is him also burning the only bridge that was left home after burning all of his fucking boats. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Belal Muhammad ever fight for the title. You can't go and claim that a company's fucking racist with zero evidence whatsoever. One of the most diverse sports companies in the entire fucking world. And especially when your fan base is as nasty as it is, it's just fucking ironic. And you love to see it, don't you? Okay. Yeah, that's the end of this video, dude. Like and subscribe. It went a little longer than I thought it might. I wrote out a lot of fucking notes because he literally kept saying shit. And I was like, I can't believe you're saying this. But anyways, like and subscribe. I'll see you at the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.